mean for Lamar?
Well, look, obviously everybody's kind of probably focused on the negative, with them losing. It does have, not feelings. I mean, it reminds me of Dirk Nowitzki winning the MVP, his only one in 2007, and getting it and it being announced after they lost in the first round of the playoffs to the 8th seed Golden State Warriors. So that was kind of an embarrassment situation. And this is somewhat like that, but it's also a great accomplishment. 3 MVPs, only 7 guys. He will be the 7th guy to win his 3rd MVP. So that's awesome. I think, though, and you talked earlier about, like, the media in harsher times, like, this ratchets up the pressure on him to win a Super Bowl. Like, it already was there because he's got 2 MVPs and he's been great in the regular season. But now it just comes, it's even more. Every year he doesn't win it, the pressure gets higher and higher and higher. And so I think it's a great accomplishment for him to because I do think he started with a 20-yard, in a 100-yard dash, he was 20 yards behind the other contestants. And he played so well that he was able to overcome it, assuming he wins the MVP. But I think it'll be tough to get that 4th before he gets to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know if it has any significance to him at all. He talked all season long about how important winning the playoffs was. And if anything, it probably makes this season that much more disappointing. And I'd say it's even more disappointing because you had Derrick Henry, who could easily be in the same conversation because his numbers rivaled Saquon.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it would mean the voters, like, if he wins it, I feel the voters got it wrong. And I think that Sean McDermott's quotes, I understand it's a regular season award, but follow me here. Ty Dunn, who does a great job, he writes, he's the one who, remember a year and a half ago, the article that came out that talked about the McDermott quotes about 9/11 and the kind of inside that whole thing. That Ty Dunn had that story. He does a really good job. It's on Substack. You got to pay for it. It is a good job. He had something that didn't get picked up as much as maybe it would have if it were in the mainstream, because he's in the winner's locker room. And inside the winner's locker room, their ticket to the AFC Championship game punch, Bills players were frank. They wanted to put the ball in Lamar's hands. Head coach Sean McDermott instructed the defense to sell out on Derrick Henry and the Ravens' rushing attack to win first down and make Baltimore one-dimensional. So I just don't think that's ever the game plan for the other MVP candidates. Now, Goff, you could say that it's like, hey, we want to take the runaway first, but I don't think Goff was a perennial candidate or the real candidate. And it's just so why, even though his numbers were amazing, it felt to me like Josh had the better case this year. But he now will join this group of 3-time MVPs. And Aaron's the only one without multiple championship appearances. Aaron, Brett, and Jim Brown are the only ones without multiple championships. And then there's Lamar going over. I said this after last year's MVP. I will now say it again. I do not find Lamar Jackson, if I were a voter, I can't imagine the season he would have to have, Brew, for him to win my vote before we see. And by the way, I'm not saying he has to win a championship, but he has to at least get to a Super Bowl and, you know what I mean, have a great playoff run. Like, I just.
Okay. My mind is kind of going in so many different directions with this topic. This is always one of those interesting things that I always talk about where I confess that, like, I can make an argument about anything, like on either, in any side. I can debate until I'm blue in the face that Jared Goff is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I'll come up with some great arguments for it. To be clear, I don't believe that. And so it's just like this is one of those tricky situations when it's like trying to like figure out how do I truly feel about this, because I kind of have mixed feelings about all of what all of this means. And the reality is like what Nick is saying of like, we have to see him actually like do better in the playoffs or this or that. And it's like, well, that's like irrelevant. And again, this is also one of those interesting times because it's also trying to predict of like, how will the media perceive Lamar versus how I think it should be perceived, or the voters, how should the voters perceive versus, what it is? Like, what is the perception versus what is the reality? And that's that always kind of that back and forth, especially when any of the conversations about the MVP, it's always kind of like, how do I think voters will vote? How do I think, people will perceive this game versus that game, this performance versus that performance? And it is something that I noticed that trips up a lot of people when having these conversations. Because I'll make a comment where, I'll be like, oh, Lamar had a great game against the Giants, but that's not really, that doesn't really matter. And I don't think, the voters are really going to care about that. And then people are like, what do you mean? Of course it's a big game. And I'm like, I'm not saying that it wasn't a big game for me. I'm saying like how I think it's going to be perceived by the people who are actually voting. I don't got to vote. And for whatever reason, that I've just noticed that trips up, a handful of people in the comment section. But listen, if there was a truth to Lamar Jackson really truly falling apart in the playoffs, which I have just battled against all year, and I feel as though I was validated this playoff run, then I would say that there would be something more to it. Because then there would be this real feeling that, like, it would almost be like an uncomfortable feeling of like, wow, Lamar's really good in the regular season, but like, he actually unfortunately can't handle the pressure. Like it's a psychological, like people would actually probably feel bad. It would actually probably be more of like a sympathetic kind of like, I actually feel bad. Like it's like he honestly can't handle it. Like he does, like he kind of shuts down. Which again, to be clear, I don't think that's the case. And if that was the reality, then I would say, yeah, I could see voters kind of moving on, so to speak. And although I do think voters will find whatever the next shiny thing is, right? Like Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has an awesome year with the Chicago Bear, and Lamar puts up a similar number to this, like, or Jaden, whoever. Like I could see that. I could see Lamar losing the ability in any of the situations where it's tie goes to the runner, or in this situation where it's like if Saquon broke the record and Lamar still had this awesome year, people would say, you know what, we're going to give it to Saquon. Like, because again, it's like trying to figure out how are people conceptually thinking about all of this? Where are their own, perceptions about it? So again, so to one degree, I believe that, but also at the other time, on the other side, it's just like, he shouldn't have to do anything in the playoffs because the MVP is a regular season award. We know that. That's why the voting stops after the regular season. So we know that. So this idea that he could not win an MVP until he does more in the playoffs is kind of like, well, you're either the MVP or you're not. Not to mention, I do not think that Lamar Jackson proved to not be the most valuable player for his team in the playoffs. I think he played really, really great. And that's where I want to kind of continue to unpack this, because also, like, this one quote that Nick just kind of was like, oh, this is the best. Like, yeah, it's the best because you agree with it. Guys, this is what coaches are always trying to do. They want to make teams one-dimensional. Like, of course they want to take away Derrick Henry in the rushing attack. That's not shocking. That's like saying, hey, to stop Patrick Mahomes, we want to really, in the playoffs, we really want to take away, Travis Kelce and make him and force him to work to other, receivers. Does that mean like Patrick Mahomes can only work with Travis? Because like, no. Or Josh Allen, we want to keep him in the pocket. We don't want him to kind of get out of the pocket because we know he's so dangerous with his legs. Does that mean that he can't throw? Like, and this is the same, they say the same thing about Jalen Hurts. They'll say this about Jared Goff. Like, it all depends on what type of quarterback and what you do versus what. Like, yes, when you make a player or a team or an offense one-dimensional, you take away another layer of what they do special, well, then yes. Obviously, we also saw the Ravens have, 50 carries against the Steelers. So, yeah, trying to contain Derrick Henry will limit Lamar Jackson. Just like taking away Saquon will limit Jalen Hurts. Just like how when the run game was limited for Mahomes and the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes was limited as well, whether you want to say because of injuries or because of defensive attack. That all makes sense. That all makes sense. So this is not like to try to paint this quote as, again, as like an indictment on Lamar. Like, what do you think the Bills were going to try to do against the Ravens? Well, we know there's just no way to slow down Lamar, so we just figured we're just not going to do anything. Like, I don't even understand like how this is even kind of like a thing to be like, do you see this? This is what the Bills were trying to do. Like, you're like, oh man, like this, they're saying the quiet part out loud. Like, oh really? They want to take away a big, massive weapon for this Baltimore Ravens offense and put more pressure on the quarterback, because we know in every single situation for quarterbacks, when you put more on their plate, it's harder for them to succeed no matter who you are, whether it's Brett Favre, Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen, like any quarterback under the sun. Like, that's not unique. We can say this probably about every single quarterback and every single team. So it's just kind of silly, especially for the quarterbacks who are going to be more mobile, who what makes them special is them being able to do multiple things and not a singular thing, like a Stafford and his arm, or maybe like a Joe Burrow and his arm, things of those nature. That's like the one outlier. But then again, then it's kind of like, okay, we'll take away Jamar Chase, like, or something, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can do that for all these teams. We would just have to find a different way to approach it. But, it's like, oh, they wanted to sell out on Derrick Henry and the Ravens rushing attack to win first down and make Baltimore one-dimensional. Yeah. You want to win the first down against every single team. Against every single team. Like, it's just forcing Lamar or any quarterback in constant second and long, third and long. Yeah, that helps you. I mean, that's just like, come on, man. Like, this is some of the stuff that kind of drives me crazy. Because we could just take away his face and put just every other quarterback under there. We really could. We really could. The Houston Texans probably would have been better off if they just sold out and just went after Travis Kelce, because no other wide receiver was doing anything else. It's like, okay, it's an indictment. Patrick Mahomes can only throw to Travis Kelce then. So, like, that stuff I just think is just, it sounds good. If you don't really know, if you don't take a second to think about it, you're like, oh, whoa. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's what they wanted to do. And yeah, it worked. And it's like, did it? Because I'm pretty sure Lamar Jackson ate later on. And he had some beautiful plays. When you did sell out and you gave him time in the pocket, he found someone to throw to and made a perfect, beautiful throw. So, like, again, like, I don't understand. It's one thing if Lamar Jackson fell apart. It's one thing if Lamar Jackson threw 3 interceptions. He had a Jared Goff game, or a Justin Herbert game, or a Jordan Love game. Then that would be like, yeah, man, Lamar just really struggles to throw, or he really cannot read defensive, like whatever it is, whatever negative thing you want to say, whatever, stereotypical little quote we want to throw in there. But that's not how that game unfolded. He specifically almost beat you because of his one-dimensional attack. That's how he was leading the charge. And he wasn't able to come away with the win. No fault of his own. No fault of his own. So, isn't it kind of funny how no matter what you do, it's just wrong? Because we can see 245.4 passing yards per game, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And then you have on the other side, you have someone like a Jalen Hurts, who has significantly less passing yards per game. I don't know his number right off the top of my head. And also low interceptions, but less, passing touchdowns and whatnot. And they rip him for, like, not passing enough. And now Lamar Jackson passes, at a very high level, does great. But then it's kind of like, no, but it's not in the way that we like it. And like I said too before, because this is a conversation that keeps coming up, like, yes, Lamar Jackson's pure ability to be a passer, like in the singular trait of him passing the ball and being a thrower, that is technically not his superpower, right? If we looked at mobility, designed runs, avoiding pressure, passing, if they were each their own separate little category, yes, technically passing would be, if everything was on a scale of 1 to 10, technically passing, and these are made up numbers, technically for him, passing would be 8. and some of those other things would be 9 and 10. So yeah, if he does anything that's not at a 10 or a 9, even if it's just an 8, then boom, that's what. Even if everything's all 10 and passing is just a 9, well then yeah, you want him to rely on 9. That's going to give you the best advantage. It's going to give you the best opportunity to win. It doesn't mean that it's trash. It doesn't mean that, okay, passing isn't his number one superpower, therefore he's awful. Therefore it's a 4. It's a 3. And I think that's something that people also lose sight of, especially Lamar Jackson fans. But I can understand why, because then you have other people that also kind of twist it. The people that like understand that conceptually, but still want to twist it and hammer it home. And yeah, I just don't think it's fair. I really don't. And Lamar Jackson played good enough to win this game, and Lamar Jackson played high-level football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was simple. It was straightforward. They didn't need him to do anything too complex, but still high level. Still, if things were wrong with him being an MVP, then he would have lost that game. He would have thrown it away. It would have been a disaster. And yeah, I mean, it's this type of, oftentimes I really love to get lost in the weeds. I talk about it all the time. I love to just kind of get lost in the weeds and kind of just really unpack stuff. But it's when we kind of start to get in places like this, when it's like trying to figure out like MVP, well, then he should never win another MVP until he gets to a Super Bowl. It's just like, well, now we're actually legitimately lost. Now we're just having wrong conversations from my viewpoint. Or even bringing up the whole thing with Dirk Nowitzki and that being like an embarrassment or this or that, or it's like kind of proof, actually, he really won the MVP. And it's like, well, yeah, like them losing to the Buffalo Bills is not an embarrassment. They lost to the Buffalo Bills. And did Lamar Jackson play an absolute 100% perfect game? No, he did not. Did he play a bad game? No, he did not. Did he play good enough to win? Yes. Yes, he did. Did he have long stretches where he put the team on his back and played and was special? The only word you can literally use is special or elite? Yeah, he did. It's not like Lamar came into this game and he turned into Anthony Richardson. He didn't step into this game and turn into Gardner Minshew. Like, that's the thing that kind of continues to drive me nuts. I've told you this already before, doing all the breakdowns of these videos of these games, of that, like, the NFL is littered with these quarterbacks who have played poorly in a first half, second half, whatever it is. And that's why I named a whole bunch of them: Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, like all of these quarterbacks. But then they were all given the chance to overcome their mistakes, their issues. And Lamar did that, just like all those other quarterbacks. Tom Brady, if I didn't mention him. The difference is that the other players helped support those quarterbacks in support of digging themselves out of a hole. Lamar Jackson's team simply did not. That is on the team. That is on the team. If you're a Baltimore Ravens fan or Lamar Jackson fan, yes. Do you wish that Lamar played a cleaner game, especially obviously in the first half? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? If you're a big fan of that, yeah, you could be a little gutted because you're like, if only he didn't throw an interception, we win that game. Yeah, I get that feeling because it is real. Like that is a true claim as well. But so is if Mark Andrews doesn't fumble the ball, if he catches a 2-point conversion, if the defense can stop Josh Allen and force a 3-and-out or one, third down conversion if they did tie it up, and now you're going to overtime, relying on your defense now to step up when they need it most. Because they only gave up 7 points that second half. So it's like, okay, well, now it would be up to the defense to be like, continue that. Get no more points. That's all on. We got to get to overtime. Defense, step up, slow down Josh Allen. We've seen the Chiefs do it to the Ravens, to the Bills, to the the Bengals. Like, the other defenses do it. The Patriots defenses have done it. The Bengals defenses have done it. The Rams defenses have done it. Like all these other teams with all these other quarterbacks have done it. It's a team sport. So, yeah. I mean, this conversation got messier than I had originally anticipated it to be because it's so multifaceted to me, because we're trying to use now playoffs as a reference point as to why he should not win MVP anymore, and then we're trying to use this specific, Bills playoff attack against Lamar like it's somehow like very unique or special to Lamar, as well as saying like, let's compare this to how when Dirk won MVP and then he lost in the first round. Yes, if Lamar lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers and laid an absolute egg, then sure, that example would hold more weight. But being on the road in a winnery game against the Buffalo Bills, the number 2 seed, Josh Allen, who again, sorry Baltimore Ravens fans, but he's a monster as well. Like it's just dumb. It's just dumb. And I'm not going to live in a world where if Lamar Jackson wins that game, he's special. He's him. He's awesome. He's the MVP. And then if he loses that game, he's just not it. I don't know. Can they ever win with him? It's just not doing it. Not doing it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson? Really, I guess about Lamar Jackson, not the Baltimore Ravens. But what do you think? What would winning an MVP mean for Lamar? And kind of like how they kind of unpacked it, where it was like, this will maybe be the last one for a while, or what have you. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.